What you witnessed just now was the power of the people. The people have come out in force and they have voiced their displeasure and their opinions. Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. Today is the 11th of April 2022. I am Jama Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team. Here are your headlines for tonight.
A severe shortage of medicine reported in the country. Treatment of patients at serious risk. Warnings issued by health professionals. Another death reported at a queue. Basic discussions postponed. We'll keep an eye on the political and economic situation of the country, says the International Monetary Fund. A no-confidence motion and an impeachment to be brought up. Samagizana Balavege requests support from other parties. The 11 constituent parties do not support a no-confidence motion, says an interim government is required. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa addresses the nation. Sri Lankan actor Hiran Abesekara wins the Best Actor at Olivier Awards.
My Sri Lanka is going through a little bit of a tough time now, and I wish I was there with you. Machanla Mangbalata Adre, Jai Reva.
In our top story for this evening, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has said the government will continue to take steps to address the current crisis. He made these remarks during a special address to the nation earlier today.
I am speaking to you at a very decisive position for the country. Although we were able to protect the people's lives from COVID-19, we can feel that the country is falling into a deeper crisis. We haven't been able to unload fuel consignments because we don't have dollars. People are facing various issues. We understand how tired the people must be after standing in queues. We understand the suffering of the women who are in queues for gas. We have a good understanding of the pain faced by the people amidst the rising cost of living. We invited all political parties represented in Parliament to unite and rebuild the country. We undertook that responsibility as the party which is in power. We will provide solutions to those issues. We didn't end the 3-decade-long war against terrorism to inconvenience the people like this. We didn't construct highways for people to stand in queues. We didn't build ports for fuel tankers to remain docked as we don't have dollars. While thousands of lives were lost due to COVID-19 in other countries, we didn't vaccinate the people and protect them so that they can die after being attacked by tear gas. We will take all possible measures to overcome this crisis. We can hear slogans rejecting 225 MPs. If it means that we are rejecting democracy, we can take a look at history and understand its repercussions. We saw the damage that was caused by trying to bomb Parliament. We saw how thousands of young people were burnt alive on the roads. During the dark era between 1988 and 1989, our country lost the lives of more than 60,000 people. We know that the older generation in this country remembers the efforts that we took to protect young lives. The uprising in the north was launched by the youth in the 1970s and 1980s by murdering public representatives on the streets. During the 3 decades that followed, people in both the north and the south had to suffer. As people who understand the repercussions of that, we are requesting the younger generation to avoid dragging the country into an era similar to that. We have launched a strong plan to overcome the crisis. The President and the government are spending every minute seeking to resolve the crisis. For every second you spend on the streets protesting, we are losing out on dollars that can be received by the country. Remember that the country needs your resilience and courage. Don't harass police or Triforce's personnel who are on duty. You are traveling peacefully on the streets today and protesting because the soldiers sacrificed their lives and protected this country. We were the ones who created a country in which you can wave the national flag at any place. We still have the courage that we had to face the challenges at that time.
The crises in Sri Lanka deepen with each passing day, with many sectors crippled or in limbo owing to the stark mismanagement of responsible authorities. As a responsible media organization, Newsfirst has constantly shed light on acts of mismanagement, discrepancies and corruption ranging from the fertilizer crisis, fuel and the foreign exchange shortage. But failure of the government to address and curtail such obstacles in a timely and effective manner has Sri Lanka suffering its worst economic crisis in its post-independent history. The latest complication that has arisen in the country is an acute shortage of medical supplies and pharmaceuticals. Tonight, we bring to your attention the gravity of this crisis and its detrimental impact on the healthcare system.
There is a list indicating a shortage of 237 goods. Then the situation is clear. The State Ministry's secretary says the situation can worsen in the future. That is because it will take about 2 months for suppliers to import medical supplies even if letters of credit are opened now. We will face an era where medicine is in short supply. This would be more serious than COVID-19. If there is a shortage of a drug used to treat a person who had just suffered cardiac arrest, then that exposes that person's life. There are no vaccines to prevent rabies. There is a shortage of antibiotics as well. There is a shortage of 237 drugs used for special treatments, including heart attacks. Infants less than 28 days need ET tubes. We also provide them with the surfactant drug if they have respiratory ailments. These are essential drugs. Otherwise, underweight children or newborns with any disease may die in the future. We are hearing that there is a shortage of these drugs as well. Around 4 months ago, we told the Health Ministry, Finance Ministry, the Prime Minister and the President that there would be a crisis over medicine. We called on them to intervene and prevent it, but they did not act upon those warnings. The healthcare system is such that there is no saline tubes for patients. We know that there is a tendency for more accidents to be reported over the New Year period. When we admit patients to undergo a medical procedure, we might not be able to prevent deaths. The government must bear the responsibility for all deaths that occur due to the shortage of medicine. Patients lamented over their plight in several state-run hospitals today.
මගේ අම්මා අත කරලා දිනවා මේ ජාතික රෝහලේ සීනි බලන මැෂින් වල කටු පාවා අපිට එළියෙන් ගේන්න කියලා කියනවා. බේක මේ පාමිසියකින් ගේන්න කිව්වා. පාමිසියකෙත් නෑ මේ බේක. එළියෙන් ගේන්න කියලා කිව්වා දැන් ඔය අර කටු වටුයි ඔක්කොම. අපි ICU එකේ දාලා තියෙන්නේ ලෙඩ ඇවිල්ලා. ඔපරේෂන් 3ක්ම කළා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් බෙහෙත් නැහැ. ඒ තරම් අසරණයි අද මිනිස්සු. බෙහෙත් නැහැ කියනවා. දැන් පාමිසියෙන් ගන්න ලියලා දීලා තියෙන. ඉතින් අපිට පාමිසියෙන් ගන්න සල්ලිත් නැහැ. ඉතින් මොනවා කරන්නද? කරුමයක් මේක කරුමයක්. තුන් වර්ගයක් දීලා ඉතුරු එළියෙන් ගන්න කිව්වා. මාස දෙකකට කියලා ලියලා තියෙන එනට මාස දෙකකට නෑ බෙහෙත්. දැන් අදාව අදත් බෙහෙත් දෙකක් ලිව්වා පාමිසියට. සල්ලි නැතුව කොහොමද දැන් කීයක් වෙයිද දන්නේ නෑ බෙහෙත් දෙක ගන්න.
Trade unions of the health sector had this to say on the prevailing crisis. There was a shortage of more than 4 drugs at the cancer hospital today. By next week, there would be a shortage of more than 10 essential drugs at the cancer hospital. If a cancer patient cannot obtain chemotherapy on time, that would make all previous chemo treatments invalid. More than 12 billion has to be paid for supplies of laboratory equipment. Some suppliers have halted the supply of goods. They will cancel all supplies if this continues for a month. We have learned that there is a shortage of distilled water in some hospitals. The salbutamol drug isn't available at many hospitals either. We heard that the Karapiti hospital had received only 10,000 paracetamol tablets, although they had requested for 60,000. The emonodepil, clopidepil and nicorendil drugs are not available at hospitals. Parents who admit their children to the Lady Ridgeway Hospital have to externally purchase 170,000 rupees worth of VP shunt medical devices that are used to relieve pressure on the brain. There is a shortage of the drug named sodium valproate, which is used to treat fits at the Lady Ridgeway Hospital. The Health Ministry says it has been able to import 1 life-saving drug so far. There was a shortage of 140 essential and life-saving drugs in the country over the past week. The ministry says they are continuing to take steps to resolve this crisis. A health minister has not been appointed for over a week, despite a crisis surrounding medicinal drugs in the country. The economic crisis had led to shortages of medical supplies, ultimately endangering the lives of the people. Sri Lanka has now decided to approach the International Monetary Fund for assistance against such a backdrop. A discussion scheduled to be held between the IMF and Sri Lankan delegations online was cancelled today. This was confirmed to Newsfirst by the Minister of Finance, Ali Sabri. During a recent cabinet briefing, the central bank's new governor, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, said another round of talks will be held on the 18th of this month. The IMF's mission chief to Sri Lanka, Masahiro Nozaki, had told the Bloomberg media outlet that talks will be held with senior Sri Lankan policymakers in the quote-unquote coming days and weeks. He had said that the IMF will support Sri Lanka in line with its policies. The mission chief had noted that the IMF is monitoring the political and economic developments in the country very closely.
As Sri Lanka attempts to approach the International Monetary Fund for assistance, former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had spoken on the current situation in the country to the CNBC media outlet.
Mr. Wickremesinghe, the public is calling for the Rajapaksa brothers all to remove themselves from politics. Would it also not be a good time for you to step down from leadership of the UNP? The last election that you lost was also on the back of poor economic performance. Isn't it time for new leadership across the board in Sri Lanka to take the country into the next era?
Look, a lot of people are looking at the proposals I am giving. If you want me to go, I will go. But the 4,000 miles away and I am here on spot.
Well, I'm just wondering, after the last election, would it not have been sensible?
So I give you an answer to that. You want to be hard, I will also be hard. Shall we?
Well, I'm just wondering what your plans are.
You want some news, so I'm giving you news. I'm giving you a hard answer, I can give you a hard one.
Sorry, what was your hard answer again?
My hard answer is you are out there 4,000 miles away. I am here. My proposals in Parliament have been accepted outside. And I'm trying to implement it without without asking for any government position. I've spoken with the World Bank, I've spoken with India, I'm speaking with the government and the opposition. You want me to go? No, I'll do. The CNBC said this. If you want, I'll put it to the people of Sri Lanka.
And this is not a proposal from CNBC, Mr. Wickremesinghe.
You're out there talking to the English-speaking community. The people out there, Sinhala and Tamil-speaking. Come here.
People are continuing to stage protests in several parts of the country. They are opposing the rising cost of living, the economic burden, the shortage of goods and the growing queues that can be seen outside stores to purchase essential items. Against this backdrop, there is a massive question that continues to linger over the heads of the people. Are the elected representatives, those in Parliament, really concerned about the problems faced by the general public?
The Samagi Jana Balawegaya, National People's Power and Tamil National Alliance are willing and ready to move a motion of no confidence against the government and an impeachment motion against the President. The groundwork for the aforementioned motions are now being prepared by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Certain details on it were revealed at a media briefing today.
එකක් තමයි මේ රජයට එරෙහිව විශ්වාස භංගයක් ඉදිරිපත් කිරීම. ඒකට අවශ්‍ය
If we have the support of 113 MPs, we can pass this motion against the government, the cabinet and the Prime Minister. We began collecting signatures for this purpose during the last parliamentary session. Our plan is to unite all parties in parliament, including the 4 groups that are now independent. Our second intention is to present an impeachment motion against the President. If we collect 113 signatures, the Speaker bears the authority of accepting it or not. If we collect 150 signatures, it would be irrelevant if the Speaker accepts it or not.
113 අත්සන් වල දෝෂාභියෝගය බාර ගැනීමේ අභිමතය තිබෙන්නේ කතානායකවරයාට. අපි අත්සන් 150ක් ඉදිරිපත් කරොත් മന്ത്രിවරුන්ගේ එතකොට ඔහුගේ අභිමතය නැති වෙනවා.
However, the 41 MPs who are now independent have declined to support such a motion.
අලුත් අගමැතිවරයෙක් යටතේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු
We presented a proposal to form an all-party interim government with a smaller cabinet and a new Prime Minister. We have notified this to all political parties in Parliament. We are of the stance that we must hold discussions with them to obtain their support.
කණ්ඩායම් තුනේ එකමුතුව ඔවුන් සමග මේ ප්‍රශ්නය පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡා කළා ඔවුන්ගේ සහයෝගයත් මේට ලබා ගැනීම අත්‍යවශ්‍යයි කියලා.
විශ්වාසභංග යෝජනාවක් ආණ්ඩුවට ගේන්න හදන ඒ යෝජනාව ඇත්තටම
The attempt to bring in a no-confidence motion is a pointless one. Even if it is won, the question of how a government can be formed arises. It's a futile task to speak of a no-confidence motion if there are no plans to form a government. If that motion is lost by any chance, this situation will worsen.
වාගෙන යාමට දැන් තිබෙන තත්ත්වය තවත් ශක්තිමත් වෙනවා. ජනාධිපතිතුමා එකඟයි බහුතරයක් තීන්දුව කරන ඕන දෙයකට.
ඔබ දක්ෂ පන්දු යවන්නේ. හැබැයි මම ප්‍රවේශමේ පහර දෙන්නේ. කවුරු අගමැති වුණත් එයා
Whoever becomes Prime Minister, he must be someone who commands the confidence of a majority in Parliament. That is the focal point.
සාකච්ඡාවට බඳුන් වෙන කාරණේ.
When the 20th Amendment was taken up for a vote in Parliament, 8 MPs from the opposition voted in favour of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, and this created a feeling that the government had 157 seats in the 225-seat legislature. And it was on this basis that government lawmakers and ministers continued to stress that they can pass any bill in Parliament, citing that they have a 2/3 majority. However, the government is currently facing a crisis due to certain poor decisions that have been made over the last few weeks and the last few months. And now we are seeing lawmakers continuing to bear a different stance in Parliament. Let's take a look at the latest composition of Parliament after the recent parliamentary sittings were held. Now we have 41 MPs declaring that they would sit independently in Parliament. This leaves the government with 116 seats, while the opposition continues to hold 68 seats. However, we really can't take into account one seat that falls under the government, and that is of the Speaker, which means that the government has 115 seats at present. We also really don't know whether the 41 independent MPs will support the government or go against the government when it comes to times of critical decision making. Now, against this backdrop, what we must remind ourselves is that the only way of putting the majority to a test is by going for a vote. Now, this week we saw Tamil National Alliance parliamentarian M.A. Sumanduran calling for a vote on the emergency laws that were declared by the president. However, sadly, none of the parties supported the TNA parliamentarians' claims, and this has raised serious questions on the allegiances of all the 225 MPs in Parliament.
The crises related to fuel, cooking gas and electricity continue to take a toll on the lives of the people. Queues are now fast turning into scenes of tragedy, with the 5th death being reported at a fuel queue today. The death was of a man who had been in the queue at a filling station in Thavalama since last evening. The driver had gone back home after parking his lorry at the filling station at around 3:30 p.m. Police said the man had died at around 6:30 this morning after joining the queue again. The deceased is 46-year-old Prasanna Tilak Kumara, a father of 2 and a resident of Baduwatta. Since he couldn't stay in the queue in the morning, he came home and had a cup of tea and went to the queue at 6:30 p.m. He returned at around 9:30 p.m. to have dinner. He then joined the queue again at 3 in the morning. At around 6:15, we heard that a person had died in the queue for fuel. We later learned that it was him. The body currently lies at the Karapitia Teaching Hospital, where a post-mortem examination will be carried out. Long queues for fuel were seen in many areas today. Residents of Kandy and its surrounding areas have been in queues for several days without diesel. Long queues for diesel were seen in Mathura and its surrounding areas as well.
අපි හරක් වගේ උන්ට ඡන්දෙ දුන්නා උන් හම්බ කරගන්නවා අපිට නෑ මේ කිසිම දෙයක් අපි පෝලිං වල යනවා තෙල් ටික ගන්න ගෑස් ටික ගන්න හාල් ටික ගන්න සීන් ටික ගන්න.
This was the situation at the Mavanella town today.
බැරිනම් දාලා යන්න කියන්න. අතරම මේ රවට්ටන්න එපා මිනිස්සු මෙහෙම. බැරිනම් දාලා යන්න කියන්න.
This was the situation at a filling station in Kapitipola that received fuel after several days.
The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation says fuel won't be sold to people with cans in the coming 3 days. We will stop selling fuel to people with cans and barrels on the 12th, 13th and the 14th. If there is a need for fuel for agriculture activities, we will sell fuel to farmers who produce a letter certified by the Agriculture Research Officer, Agrarian Officer and the Grama-Niladhari Officer. If factories need fuel, they would have to produce a letter certified by the Divisional Secretary. People can continue to buy kerosene in cans.
ඉන්ධන අවශ්‍යතාවයක් තිබෙනවා නම් ප්‍රදේශයේ ප්‍රාදේශීය ලේකම්තුමාගේ අනුමැතියක් ලබාගෙන එන්න ඕන ඒක ලබා දෙන්න. භූමි තෙල් සඳහා කෑන් එකකට අපි කෑන් වලට ගෙනියන්න පුළුවන්. ඕමාන් රටේ මොකද ආපෝ ඉල්ලීමක් කරාද තෙල් සඳහා නායක
We have held talks with Oman. We have received some proposals to purchase oil on credit. We are studying these proposals. We haven't been able to finalize this. We are holding talks for a $500 million loan from India. The Public Utilities Commission says power cuts won't be imposed on the 13th, 14th and the 15th. Power cuts won't be imposed on the 13th, 14th and the 15th. On the 16th and 17th, power cuts will be imposed for 2 hours and 15 minutes between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. We would be able to minimize power cuts during the next weekend as well.
More news will follow after this short commercial break.
Tech Bus, launched to increase the tech know-how of Sri Lankan students concludes on a successful note. Organised by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ?
නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ
අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ?
හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ. නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටා.
මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා. හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එක.
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජනනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රංගම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news. As you witnessed earlier on the bulletin, people's protests have erupted from many parts of the island, with scores of them converging at many iconic locations over the past few weeks to voice their dissent against the current regime and the soaring cost of living. Thousands of protesters who flocked to the Galle Face in Colombo over the weekend commenced a protest that has now been held for over 3 days. They have been at the location day and night, weathering the elements to voice their displeasure in the most expressive manner. We are now joined by Newsfirst's Nisal Suryarachi for an update on the latest developments from Galle Face in Colombo. Nisal? We are now ready to join Newsfirst's Nisal Suryarachi for an update on the latest developments from the Galle Face in Colombo. Nisal?
A large crowd has gathered here today. Despite the heavy downpouring of rains that we experienced just a short while ago, people have been here for 3 days straight. Despite rain or sun, they have been here protesting, making their demands against this current government. And there is water, there is food, there is sanitary facilities, there are tents for people to sleep, and this is what is going on at the protest at the moment. You can see it's a very peaceful protest. There is a heavy police presence right here in this area, but despite that it has been very peaceful, and these people here do not belong to any political party, and these people are independent individuals who have come together for a common purpose against this current government. And I'm Nisal Suryarachi reporting live from the President's office. Thank you.
Sri Lanka is currently witnessing a historic wave of protest opposite the President's office, running up to several days. People from all walks of life gathered for the third day today at Galle Face Green. Among their complaints are the growing queues, the rising cost of living, and food shortages. They say they want a better future.
Rajapaksa, you have robbed enough. Go to jail. You can't go home. You must go to jail.
I came here to Colombo to stand here inside the President's Secretariat office just to tell that they need to step down. They need to stop playing with our future. We have been here in Sri Lanka for so long, and then we should not be coming out of the streets. As you can see, everybody else also is like this by their own, because everyone else can see how you people are ruining our lives.
Many families flocked to the road opposite the President's office to join the demonstrations that have been running for more than 72 hours. Determined citizens have continued to hold the demonstration by braving heavy downpours and sacrificing their sleep. These citizens are protesting regardless of any differences, with the hope of creating a prosperous nation. Young crowds added their voice to the protest in Kapetipola in Valimata today. They obstructed the Badulla Kandy main road opposite the Kapetipola bus depot. Those involved in the tourism industry in Unavatura organised a protest at the Pilagoda junction. They demanded the president to resign from his position.
There is no electricity, there are no dollars, people don't have food or water. They looted our money. We are asking back our money. We are not affiliated to a political party. We want the power of the people to chase this corrupt administration away. Where is the money that they laundered?
Students of the Advanced Technological Institute in Kandy organised a protest near the clock tower in Kandy today.
Those who have taken to the streets have genuine concerns. Those in power don't have a conscience. They are not sensitive. Leave this country now. We will rebuild this country using the strength of the youth. We must produce a set of intelligent politicians. We must put an end to corrupt politics. This is our country. This belongs to all of us.
Traders running small and medium-scale businesses in Anamaru and farmers of Ingidimitia also held demonstrations near the clock tower. The movement of vehicles were affected for nearly an hour along the Kurunagala Putlam, Kurunagala Chilau and Kurunagala Navagatteganu roads.
අපේ අහිංසක ගොවියෝ අවුරුදු කණ්ඩ පුන පුනා බලාගෙන ඉන්නවා වන්දි දෙනකන්. නමුත් මේ වෙනකන් එක රුපියලක් වන්දි වශයෙන් දීලා නැහැ.
Sri Lankan expatriates are also organising protest in solidarity with the Sri Lankan people. Protests have been organised in several parts of Italy today against the current political administration.
අපි කරන්නේ මේ ඔවුන් වෙනුවෙන් හඬක් නගන එක. ලංකාවේ මේ අසවලා කුණු වෙලා ඕජස් ගන්න තුවාලයක් තියෙනවා. ඒක මුලින්ම අපි සුද්ධ කරගෙන ඉන්න ඕන. අන්නේ සුද්ධ කිරීම තමයි කරන්නේ.
A demonstration had been organised in Rome against the crises in Sri Lanka. A similar protest was held in Germany's capital of Berlin. Sri Lankan university students had organised a protest in Germany's city of Cologne.
We are sad about the country's situation. Create a country for us to go back to. We are asking the Rajapaksa family to resign from power. Allow us to build this country.
A protest was organised in the Canadian city of Montreal.
The people are on the streets amidst the heavy downpours. That is because they are helpless. The thieves are being protected. We aren't asking to send these thieves back to their countries. We are asking them to be jailed. The wealth that they stole should be brought back.
Sri Lankan expatriates in the US also joined a wave of demonstrations. Sri Lankans residing in England's town of Telford also joined the demonstration against the current administration.
At a time when a government without foresight is destroying the country by disregarding any ethic or party differences, we are asking the Sri Lankan government to resign.
A protest was held under the theme "We Want Kota, the hero who protects the nation" in Anuradhapura today. It was organized by the former Northwestern Province Chief Minister S.M. Ranjit and other local politicians. An almsgiving had been organized for the protesters who had marched to the Anuradhapura main bus stand.
Our children are in hunger. They are on a protest march supporting the president, but our children don't even have milk powder. They are going on a protest march for 5,000 rupees and a bottle of Iraq. So we have organized something special for lunch. They are on a protest march to protect the Rajapaksas. This country is destroyed. We can't even feed our mothers. We can't even celebrate the New Year festival. The agriculture sector has been badly affected. The country is destroyed.
Government supporters who marched from the bank roundabout to the office of the Podujana Eksat Perumuna were involved in a confrontation with Venerable Rajanganaya Saddaratana Thero.
අපි ඒක දන්නවා. අපි කියන්නේ ඔයා ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කරන්න එපා මෙතන. ඔයා යන්නකෝ ඒ පැත්තට. අපි ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කරන්න ආවේ නෑනේ. ඔයාලා කාල් කිලෝයට රුපියල් 200 ඉස්සර හම්බෙන්නේ අපිට කාල් කිලෝයට රුපියල් 200 ඉස්සර හම්බෙන්නේ. මොකද එයාලට කියලා රජයට පක්ෂපාතීව ගියා කියලා එයාලා රුපියල් 55ට මේ කාල් කිලෝයට ඔයාලා රංගනේකාව ගෙනාවෙත් මේ මම තමයි ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් මතක තියාගන්න ඉන්න. හරිද? වටිනවා. අපි යවන්නෙත් මම තමයි.
අවිචාවාදී දේශපාලන ගමනක් අපි මේ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයෙන් තියක් කළාවේ අපි මිනිසුන්ට ගහන්න එහෙම නැත්නම් මිනිසුන්ට තාන්න පීඩ කරන්න දේපල වලට හානි කරන්න අපි කටයුතු කරන්නේ නැහැ.
A tense situation arose in Chilao today during protests both in favour and against the government. A group of citizens who were not affiliated to any political party had organised a protest against the government. Some government protesters then reached the Chilao town as part of their demonstration. A tense situation ensued between the two groups. Members of the Christian clergy marched the town in protest against the government. Religious observances were carried out after the police had intervened to bring the situation under control.
News First with the people.
We will cross over for another commercial break. Do stay tuned to News First.
Tech Bus, launched to increase the tech know-how of Sri Lankan students, concludes on a successful note. Organized by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ එස්ලෝන් ඉන්සයිඩ්. එස්ලෝන් ජීවයයි ජලය ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to the news. Sri Lanka's ongoing economic crisis has spared no one, with people from all walks of life strained each day as a result of it. However, a certain segment of people have taken it upon themselves to alleviate the woes of the people to the best of their capacity.
Life is a mixture of all emotions ranging from happiness to grief. The worsening crisis has made life difficult for people already grappling with several issues. This is a time to bring some hope for such families. Government took the initiative to distribute food provisions amongst these families as much as possible. The objective is to keep as many people possible happy for the Sinhala and Tamil New Year festival. All this was possible thanks to the kindness and generosity of donors who stepped forward to help. Gamadda was able to help these needy families because of you. Yes, we can't help everyone who needs help, but that's not a reason to do nothing. Gamadda, by the people, for the people.
News First with the people.
Sri Lankan actor Hira Nabesekara won the Best Actor at the Olivier Awards ceremony held last night for his portrayal of the character Pai in the hit production Life of Pi. In a touching speech, the actor said he was overwhelmed to win Best Actor and also paid tribute to his home country, Sri Lanka, which he said was going through a tough time.
A stage adaptation of Life of Pi and a revival of the musical cabaret were the big winners at Sunday's Olivier Awards. Life of Pi, based on the Booker Prize-winning novel, was named Best New Play and scooped several technical prizes. The play's lead, Hira Nabesekara, won Best Actor, while the 7 actors who play the tiger shared the Best Supporting Actor prize.
Hira Nabesekara.
Hello. Thank you so much for this. This is very overwhelming. I am a result of a lot of love and generosity of many. I would like to think of you all right now. I hope you're proud of me. My thanks goes out to my wonderful, extraordinary parents. My Sri Lanka is going through a little bit of a tough time now. I think of you and I wish I was there with you. Machanla Mangbalata Adre, Jayaveva, and my Life of Pi family. Yo, what's going on?
Shehbaz Sharif was elected as the new Prime Minister of Pakistan today. The 70-year-old is the brother of former 3-time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif.
Shehbaz Sharif was elected unopposed as Pakistan's new Prime Minister during a special meeting of the National Assembly today. Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf leader Shah Mahmood Qureshi was also in the fray for the prime ministerial post. However, he said that his party had decided to resign from the National Assembly. Today's session to choose the country's new leader was held after Imran Khan was ousted from his post as Prime Minister through a no-confidence motion over the weekend. Shehbaz Sharif, the new Prime Minister, was once barred by the Supreme Court from holding public office in 2017. He subsequently went overseas for medical treatment after serving just a few months of a 10-year jail sentence for corruption charges.
A video circulating on social media shows frustrated residents in China's city of Shanghai screaming from their apartments. It is said that they were expressing their frustration due to the harsh COVID-19 lockdown.
The contraction of Ukraine's economy will deepen on the duration and the intensity of its ongoing war. It noted that Ukraine needs massive financial support immediately as it struggles to keep its economy going and to support its citizens. The World Bank has observed that the war is affecting the emerging and developing economies of Europe and Central Asia. The countries had already been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to Russia and Ukraine, Belarus, Kyrgyz Republic, Moldova and Tajikistan are projected to fall into recession this year. Growth projections have been downgraded in all economies due to spillovers from the war, weaker than expected growth in the euro area and commodity, trade and financial shocks. The region's economy is now forecast to shrink by 4.1% this year.
Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has handily won a controversial referendum he supported to determine whether he should step down or complete his 6-year term.
López Obrador won slightly more than 90% of the vote yesterday, with turnout hovering at an estimated 18% of eligible voters, far below the 40% threshold needed for it to be legally binding. Opposition leaders had actively discouraged people from voting, with many condemning the poll as a propaganda exercise and a costly distraction from more pressing problems. Both critics and supporters had viewed the victory as all but a foregone conclusion, although the vote has raised suspicion it could open the door to extending presidential term limits, now limited to a single 6-year period. The 68-year-old president, who had been the architect of the country's first ever recall referendum, hailed the result as historic, but quickly sought to douse concerns he planned to use the result to pursue a constitutional reform, allowing him to seek another term after his current term ends in 2024. He said in a video message, quote, "I'm going to continue serving until the last day of my term. I'm not going to go past that because I'm a Democrat and I'm not in favor of re-election," unquote. Costing millions of dollars and heavily publicized in the capital, the referendum had asked Mexicans if López Obrador's mandate should be revoked due to loss of trust.
Coming back to a news item from here at home that we just received. Parliamentarian Shantha Bandara has been appointed to the state ministerial position held by Shashindra Rajapaksa. This was after Shashindra Rajapaksa had resigned from his state ministerial portfolio relating to agriculture. He held portfolios relating to several subjects, including organic fertilizer and advanced technology agriculture. And with that, it's a wrap of primetime news for tonight. For the News First team, I'm Jaimal Ratnayaka, alongside our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz. Do remember to take care, stay safe, and have yourself a good night.